Welcome back to Sports Rule Pod. I'm Nick Elam. Here we explore innovations in sports and the journeys of individuals who make sports great. You can find Sports Rule Pod on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. And there are many ways to engage with the podcast. You can do so by email, nick.elam@sportsrulepod.com, or X or Instagram @sportsrulepod. This is the final episode of Season 1, and we will be back for Season 2 later in 2026. And in this final episode of Season 1, we're joined in the interview segment by Evan Kaplan, who is the president of MLB Players, Inc. In the interview, he will explain how MLB Players, Inc. helps active and retired players to build their brand domestically and internationally. He will also share what happens when many players covet an opportunity that might be limited to a certain number of players or just one player, such as appearing on the cover of MLB The Show. And he will discuss how he had a most unconventional start on the path that has led him to his current role as president. In the innovation segment, we'll explore an audience-submitted idea to expand the list of reviewable plays to include, well, everything. And in the next to last segment, we step outside the world of sports to revisit the next to last episode of one of the most beloved drama series of all time, Breaking Bad. Let's get to it. We are so fortunate to be joined today by Evan Kaplan, who is the president of MLB Players, Inc. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, excited to be here, Nick. I'm looking forward to it.
Now, to help paint the picture, could you describe the scope of what MLB Players, Inc. does within the overall MLB Players Association?
Yeah, of course. So MLB Players, Inc. was created 4+ years ago to oversee the commercial endeavors of the Players Association. Our ultimate objectives are the same as the union as a whole: protect, serve, and advance the interests of the players. But while the organization is really primarily focused on collective bargaining and the labor needs for the players, we're on the commercial side. So we're trying to monetize players' NIL, elevate players' profiles, increase player engagement with fans. But we just run the business side of the PA.
It sounds like you're on more of the fun side of the Players Association. Now, what are some of the noteworthy opportunities that players have going on right now, whether that's in the U.S. or internationally?
Yeah, so we primarily focus on our business for 50+ years is primarily a licensing business. So we're providing the players' NIL, name, image, likeness to partners like Fanatics, who's making all the player jerseys, trading card companies like Topps, and so forth. So we have about 101 partners who are producing products using the player's likeness and name and image and so forth. We've got another 40+ sponsors that are tying for endorsement purposes, promoting brands. And then we try to figure out what are the commercial opportunities. And that's where we probably spend the most of our time now, trying to figure what else. The licensing model, it's evergreen, which is nice. But our partners have been in place for a long time. I've been working with Sony to produce MLB The Show longer than I can remember. So the partners are great and committed to the player business, but trying to figure out how else do we elevate players and find new ways to monetize and commercialize who they are as a group.
Now, to help further understand what MLB Players, Inc. does, maybe it can be helpful with a counterexample. Are there examples of off-field opportunities that players might pursue that don't fall under the purview of the Players Association or MLB Players, Inc. in any way?
Yeah, of course. That's a great question. So we actually spend a lot of time when we're meeting with players and agents trying to help them make sure they understand really what we do. So we're the exclusive group licensor on behalf of all Major League Baseball players, minor league baseball players, and then we have a commercial relationship with the Alumni Association representing over 5,000 retired players. As it relates to you specifically, your question, our rights begin at the use of 3 or more players. So if a company wants to use a group of players that have at least 3 players, that requires that company to have a license with us. So if they're making a series of bobbleheads, for example, if they're making a bobblehead of player 1, player 2, Mike Trout, Aaron Judge, as soon as they go to that third one, they're coming to us, and then they get the rights via that license for all the players. The players retain their individual endorsement rights. So if there's a companies that are working with 1 or 2 players, they're working directly with the players. And same thing on the endorsement side. They they retain their individual rights. And you'll see different commercials where a player like Shohei Ohtani's relationship with New Balance, that's his relationship. That has nothing to do with what we do. We're hopefully, by the efforts we make, elevating players, and more brands are taking note of players and working directly with them.
Now, in addition to your role as the president of MLB Players, Inc., you're a member of the board of directors for the MLB Players Alumni Association, representing the retired players. In a general sense, what are the main differences between the types of opportunities that active players have compared to alumni?
So I've been on the alumni board for, I've lost track, I don't know, 8 years or so, maybe more. And I listen to what they're looking to achieve in terms of supporting the former players. And while they have notable guys that, maybe they're in the Hall of Fame or all-star players, there's a lot of guys who just played baseball. And maybe they can use some commercial, some financial assistance post-career. So I was looking at what they were seeking to accomplish. And I said, I could probably help them. We're already talking to all these brands, trying to find opportunities. So it could be just simple things like recently I was talking to the Red Sox, like, I can't sell jerseys for some of my retired players. Can you help me get those deals done? So just trying to, again, help the retired players advance their commercial interest, and being situated, talking to all those brands. It's just one extra few minutes on a call that already takes place. So we've been it's been an easy way to support the alumni. So we like to look at it now with our minor leaguers who are supporting the full ecosystem of baseball players before they play, during their playing days, and after.
And speaking for myself as a diehard Cincinnati Reds fan, I've always wished that there was a way to know more easily, and it has gotten a little bit easier with social media these days, but I'd love to know what some of the former players from 10 or 20, 30 years ago, what they're doing now. Have they gone into business? Have they gone back to school? Are they coaching somewhere? And so I think about the way that games are presented in ballpark, and in a normal game, there's 17 inning breaks. And I love a good shell game or dance cam and things like that, and they have a place. But I wish that one of those 17 inning breaks could be used for a "Where Are They Now" feature, and get that spotlight back on the players, whether they were superstars or just middle of the roster type players. I would love to see that type of a thing, even if it falls a little bit out of the scope of MLB Players, Inc.
Yeah, it's definitely not something we would coordinate, but I'm with you. I would enjoy that.
Thinking about your role on as a member of the board of directors for the Association for Alumni, what are some of the key decisions that you've been a part of?
Really just trying to help them. Their primary duties relate to the players' insurance, pension, and just supporting them post-career. So my role there is just to find those commercial opportunities. They've got their Major League alumni marketing, so they're creating different appearances for players. They're doing a lot of youth clinics. They've got a memorabilia arm. So a lot of just ideating on what they can do, what's realistic from a player participation level, and what is going to be supported at retail. So just giving them, a different lens from who they are and what their staff provides.
We're here with Evan Kaplan, the president of MLB Players, Inc., thinking about players across all sports who just find somehow to get so many different licensing, endorsement opportunities, whatever it might be. Some who come to mind, Shaquille O'Neal, Peyton Manning, they're just so natural, charismatic. Who's the best comp to that in the baseball world?
Oh, it's a great question. And it's really interesting because when I started at the Players Association, the most marketable players were based on statistics, has the most home runs and, just creates the most excitement, probably gets the most coverage on, ESPN and the like. Now it's so much about social media and engagement, and you meet these players that had long careers, and there's so much, like we were talking about Mike Cameron before we went on air here, just that personality and what they mean in the clubhouse. So you get to meet so many guys and really who they are as people. Like, you could have a group of friends and someone's going to be the nicest guy and someone's not so nice. And you get to really learn the players' personalities. It would be so hard to call out just a few, but it's really a lot of fun. Like, people say, who are your favorite players? I go, you might be a little disappointed when I give you those names because they're not the superstars. So you get to know them as people. And we spend a lot of time now educating players if they want to be out there and connecting with fans, if they want to have increase their brand value, social media is that tool, but how do you utilize it to their advantage? So we try to offer them education. We try to give them guidance in terms of how they're resonating with fans, how their reach is growing. It's just to help them so fans can get a better glimpse of what those personalities are. Because if you're not the bigger name players like the two you mentioned, which are superstars, you want to make sure that fans do have an appreciation for what the players are about, what their interests are on and off the field.
Now, I'm sure many of the licensing opportunities that you pursue are a little bit less limited, but there are some that are probably very finite. You alluded to MLB The Show earlier, and in most years they would have exactly one player on the cover, and I'm sure there are dozens of players who want to be on that and think that they are deserving of it. How do you navigate situations like that with MLB Players Inc. When there are many players who might want a limited opportunity, or is that taken off of your plate somehow?
Yeah, it's a good question. We try to support agents will call often like what brands are looking for a player that, I've got this guy, he's going to be an all-star. It's going to be his first all-star game. How do I get more visibility for him? How do I get more marketing opportunities for him? Ultimately, we don't select who's going to be on MLB The Show or a cover of Topps baseball cards. The brands do that, so we'll support them if they need data points for that. It could be sales data, it could be social media metrics, so we can help them based on markets, based on their availability to, when photo shoots may be. But ultimately, the brands are making those choices, but they're competitive as can be. It's an amazing platform to be on the cover of MLB The Show as an athlete. So we support those decisions, but ultimately they're made by the brands.
Now, these are my words, not yours, but you probably work with agents so much that you might know how to do their job as well as they do. Are there any missteps that you see agents making in this realm?
I've always wondered, like, if my son were a baseball prospect, who would I take as an agent? And each of them is so different. And I've talked to people like, why did you select this agent? And each agent, I think, is unique to the needs of that player, the way they work with them. One example, Carlos Delgado, when any time an opportunity came in for him, his agent would set up a call with me, Carlos, and the agent, and we would talk through the pros and cons. And that was the relationship Carlos wanted with his agent. He wanted to be involved in those business decisions. Others probably sit back, just tell me if I'm signing cards, what I have to sign. So I think it's all very specific. The player's needs are very specific to the agent, and then watching how they go about it, making sure that they understand who that player is and if it's consistent with their brand, not just pursuing every opportunity and trying to elevate that player's opportunities in some fashion.
One of the themes of Sports Rule Pod is innovation, and I'm curious how MLB Players Inc. adapts to different innovations. Baseball certainly has changed over the last several years in terms of playing rules, whether that's the pitch clock or ABS or changes to promote base stealing. Do any of those types of playing rules have a tangible effect on the types of off-field opportunities that are available to players or who they're available to?
Somewhat. So we've got the traditional licensing products like we've talked about, MLB The Show, baseball cards, and the like. But we also do a lot with brands that help the player from recovery and restoration and helping them. We have the longest season in Major League Sports or pro sports. Helping them work with brands, getting them access to different products. We try to be at the forefront as new products come along, making it accessible to players, educating them. So there's so much innovation and advancement of technologies. So we try to stay at the forefront of it, both from an on-field perspective and off. New products that may appeal to fans. We just did it was to finalize a license with Genies on a new AI technology platform. And we're always trying to figure out how do we advance and diversify everything we do to support the players.
Now, I'm sure MLB Players Inc. constantly trying to explore creative opportunities, and naturally part of that process is you're brainstorming ideas that might not be successful. So can you think of an idea that you brainstormed that was promising on paper, but that just didn't pan out, or that was just so far outside the box that you didn't pursue it?
That's never happened, fortunately. We're really good at what we do. That's why, we represent the best, so we strive to be the best internally. But I do think it's important when I speak to the team, I want to be the first from a licensing entity. I don't want to hear about one of the competing unions doing something before us. I want to be ahead of them. I want to prove to the players every day that the people representing them are the best. But we have to be careful because there are a lot of quote unquote, good ideas out there. But if it doesn't work, I don't want the players to question our efficiency and the way we support them. So there is a fine balance there. So we'll probably identify potential miss before it implodes and, pivot quickly.
Coming down the stretch here with Evan Kaplan, the president of MLB Players, Inc. Another theme of Sports Rule Pod are career journeys, and you've been with the MLB Players Association since 1997. What was it that initially drew you to MLBPA?
It's funny. I get kids reaching out all the time saying, I'm a sports management major. I want to work in sports. I'd like to learn more about how you got your job. And there's nothing relatable about how I got here that I can offer them. My background, I don't have a law degree. I wasn't a sports management major. My background's in graphic design, which doesn't necessarily aid anything I do here. I was doing a lot of freelance work prior to being here. I was doing some design work for a small sports marketing company, and I did research for an article in 1997 in Vanity Fair magazine profiling the next generation of young superstars, baseball stars. And I had put it on a resume, and a recruiter somehow gotten it and invited me to interview, and that's how I got here. So it was a good time to come in. Unfortunately, the game was at a low in 97, coming off the 94-95 work stoppage. 98 came along, and we had the whole home run blitz with McGuire and Sosa, and people were excited about it. And I rode the wave, and I've been here, like I said, a long time.
So it began in 1997, and now here in 2026, you've earned the opportunity to be president of MLB Players, Inc. What are the specific strengths and accomplishments that helped you earn that opportunity?
I think at its simplest, it's just an appreciation for what I get to do every day. I really enjoy it. So it's endless hours, it's endless commitment, having an appreciation for who we are, what we represent. The relationships I've built is tremendous. I'm so fortunate. Each segment of our business, I have different friends in there, and I get to work with them. So it's just a genuine effort every day to make it work. Strong communications and skills and understanding of who we are as a union and what we aren't at times as a business entity. The success is, is not my own, but it stands for itself. And, it's been an amazing ride, and I'm very fortunate.
Is there such a thing as a typical day or typical week? And if so, what happens?
There isn't, but what I say is I do the same thing every day annually. So like this time of year, next year, I know what I'll be doing. I'll be probably sitting in a chair like this doing a podcast. Next February, if things go well on the labor side, I'll be in spring training camps. We were out on the road for several weeks, a few months ago. Every year I'm doing the same thing at the same time. So it's a cycle, an annual cycle, but it never gets repetitive because it's always changing. So right now we're looking ahead to All-Star Game and implementing all the planning that took place during the off season. So I'm always doing the same things, but you get a year break before you do it again. So it's nice.
And thinking about certain times on the baseball calendar, one being the trade deadline, and then another being the hot stove league in the offseason with free agent signings, with players changing teams or joining teams on short notice. From a licensing standpoint, what you do, is that a time that's especially exciting or especially stressful, both or neither?
It's exciting as can be for me. Stressful and exciting for my licensees who have to respond quickly. So they quickly have to get that product to market. The nature of a player business is different than if you're a property like the clubs. You can sell, pick your team, the Mets, the Reds, Jersey, they know how many years out before they may be making changes. So they could be going to retail and presenting that far in advance. For the players, it's always on that last minute. Something happened in a game last night. And if we don't sell that today, that moment is gone. So the impulse hot market, that mini hot market, is so critical to our business because it comes and goes. We have, each stadium has their 81 home dates. If we miss that one, we don't get it again. So the player business is so much about the chase. There are certain products, like I said, video games that we've talked to a few times, baseball cards. We know they're coming out and they keep running through. But that chase piece for collectibles and apparel, it's paramount that we see that coming. So a player gets traded today. I want to be that T-shirt and jersey in that team store tomorrow. Otherwise, that 20, 30, 40,000 fans, they're not necessarily there the next day. I don't want to miss that. So it's so quick. We have to be so on point. If someone throws a no-hitter tonight, I need my approval people approving the product tonight. So they're online selling it immediately just to grab every available dollar.
This is such a fascinating discussion, but I know you have to go. So this is the last question here. When the story is written of Evan Kaplan's career, and we look at the acknowledgement section and see who played a part in your success, who are some of the individuals we would see?
Oh, it's an endless list. I started, like I told you, I didn't have a background in sports. So I came here, and it was a unique environment because I was based here I'm in Manhattan in our New York office. My boss, Will, was in the Midwest. So I didn't have a lot of mentorship. So I had to learn the business through partners. And I had so many great partners, some of the founding fathers, I would call them, of the licensing business. And it's too long of a list. But I had such great relationships with people who I developed at a personal level. And I continue to do that. So many, meaningful partners and partnerships and friendships that have contributed so much to my ability to be successful. Ultimately, they're the obvious labor leaders here: Don Fear, Michael Weiner, Tony Clark, and now Bruce Meyer, who've put me in a position to be successful. But it's those partnerships that's allowed me to develop, be successful by having the proper relationships that we can work collaboratively and advance the business.
Evan Kaplan, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an awesome discussion. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's great to meet you.
In the innovation segment, we explore innovations of all types and at all stages of implementation and consideration. Remember, if you have an idea for a rule change or innovation that you'd like for me to discuss on a future episode, you could submit that by email, nick.elam@sportsrulepod.com, or X or Instagram @sportsrulepod. In this episode, we have an audience-submitted idea from a Mensa member who wishes to remain unnamed. The idea is to make every type of play reviewable based on a coach's challenge. And the idea was originally submitted specifically for the NFL, but I'm going to widen the discussion to other sports too. Currently, many leagues and sports have a replay system in place, and those replays are at least partially tied to a challenge system. But in most cases, the types of plays that can be reviewed and challenged are limited to what most would describe as objective plays. This leaves many subjective calls unable to be reviewed or challenged, including calls such as holding and pass interference and roughing the passer and many others in the NFL. And in the NBA, plays such as 3-second calls, traveling, and continuation unable to be challenged. There are even a few types of calls that are not able to be reviewed in Major League Baseball, including foul tips or runner going out of the baseline or check swings, although there is some technology being tested right now in the minor leagues for check swing calls. Under the proposed idea, any type of play, called or uncalled, objective or subjected, could be reviewed based on a challenge. And there would still continue to be a limit on the number of challenges a team can make in a game. Now, I like this idea so much, or I want to like this idea so much. It logically makes so much sense on paper, and it addresses a fundamental issue that I've always had about replay systems and the way that they exclude certain types of calls. Specifically, it never made sense to me that we entrust officials to make these types of subjective calls based on one look at live speed, at whatever angle is provided to them by their positioning, with no extra time to deliberate, and based on rulebook language that they have memorized. But we don't entrust the officials to make those same types of subjective calls when they can look at it multiple times, at different speeds, at different angles, with a little bit extra time to deliberate and possibly even with a rule book there for reference. But we've seen the idea of allowing subjective calls to be reviewed. We've seen that tried in the NFL specifically, and to a limited extent, allowed pass interference plays, called or uncalled, to be challenged and reviewed, and that did not go well. The rule was scrapped after one season. Very few plays were actually overturned, and there were concerns about consistency. In short, the solution turned out to be just as messy as the original problem. And so as much as I want to like the idea of making all calls and non-calls reviewable, I can only give this idea 5 out of 10. And that rating right in the middle of the scale is intentional, because I think as much as the idea makes sense on paper, then I think it would really, in practice, just replace existing concerns with some new types of concerns. However, there are fundamental parts inherent in replay systems that I believe led to the downfall of the 2019 experiment in the NFL. And if these issues were to be addressed, which could be very tricky feasibly, then I think that the replay system could work even better than it does now, regardless of what types of calls are reviewable. Those fundamental parts of the replay system are the existence of a default ruling and the high standard of proof necessary to overturn that default ruling. And these parts are, again, embedded in the replay systems of most sports and leagues. So that first issue is that whoever is reviewing the play is not able to start from a neutral position. They must start from the standpoint of a default call and then decide whether or not that default call should be overturned. The second issue is that the standard of proof to overturn a call is too high. Fortunately, most leagues have shifted away from language such as indisputable in their standard, which almost always boxed out common sense when making rulings, but still the standard is very high. Standards such as clear and obvious in the NFL and FIFA, clear and convincing in Major League Baseball, clear and conclusive in the NBA. In a perfect world, I would like to have a 3-person panel assigned remotely to work every game that's played. And whenever a challenge is made, that 3-person panel, who would be stationed away from each other and with no way of communicating with each other, they would have a certain amount of time, say up to 2 minutes, to review that play as many times or from whatever angles and speeds they prefer. They would then view the play not from a default position, but from a truly neutral position, as if they are the ones making the original call, and they would submit their vote for what the call should be, and whatever call gets 2 out of 3 votes or even 3 out of 3 votes would be the official ruling of the play. It would be a considerable expense to have this much extra personnel to facilitate the review process, but it just might be worth it. In the next to last segment, we acknowledge a next to last from the past, and in this episode, we step outside the world of sports to revisit the next to last episode of arguably the greatest television drama series of all time, Breaking Bad. And this segment is heavy on spoilers. Vince Gilligan is the creator and executive producer of Breaking Bad, and his groundbreaking style of storytelling gave us some of the most gripping suspense and unforgettable characters we've ever seen. Those characters include Walter White, Skyler White, Jesse Pinkman, Saul Goodman, Gus Fring, Mike Armentrout, Hank Schrader, and more. One unique aspect of Breaking Bad is that while most fans began watching the series rooting for Walter White, I would guess that by the end of the series, many fans were just as passionately rooting against the main character, Walter White. By the time the series reached its next to last episode, entitled Granite State, which aired on September 22nd, 2013, fans had seemingly little to no reason to feel any empathy or to be rooting for Walter White at all, especially with the death of the lovable Hank Schrader, which Walter played an integral part in, being so fresh from the previous episode. Gilligan was playing a dangerous game with his creation, because this is not normally the recipe for success in the wind down of a series. Even more so, essentially every scene in the Granite State episode was spent either explaining things to the audience or breaking the audience's heart, or relying on the kind of crazy, implausible coincidences that were a trademark of Breaking Bad Also not a recipe for success, but yet the episode works. The episode begins with the final interaction between Walter White and Saul Goodman, a scene that is meant to explain to the audience why we should still care whether Walter White achieves any of his remaining objectives. The episode continues by explaining why Todd and his gang would want to continue in the meth trade at all after amassing and stealing a fortune, and that reason for continuing is quite a reach. The episode then breaks our hearts when we see Jesse Pinkman making an unsuccessful attempt to escape the compound where he is held, and then even more so when Todd and his gang motivate Jesse in an unspeakably cruel way to continue cooking for them. Robert Forster makes his one and only appearance in the series in this episode, and he is masterful playing Walter's disappearer. And in Walt's isolated cabin in New Hampshire, where Robert Forster's character has taken him, they have a heartbreaking conversation which drives home just how powerless and desperate and withering Walter has become. Our hearts are broken then yet again as Walter has what will be the final conversation he ever has with his son over the phone, and that call goes just about as badly as you could imagine. As the episode ends, a twist and new life is infused into the story, but it's based on a preposterous coincidence of what Walter is able to see and hear on the TV of an empty bar. But somehow, Gilligan and Breaking Bad use those ingredients of explanatory dialogue and heartbreaking scenes one after the other and crazy coincidences to make what was a fantastic next to last episode. And it leads into what is one of the most satisfying and most worthy finale episodes of any series ever. But that's all I'll say about that, because you either remember what happens in the finale or it's time to rewatch it. The last thing I'd like to do in this episode is to thank all of you for your engagement in the podcast. Please like or subscribe wherever you find the podcast and look for Season 2 episodes later in 2026. If you follow on X or Instagram, you can find updates about Season 2. And that's also where you can submit an idea for a rule change or innovation that you'd like for me to discuss on a future episode, as well as submitting it by email, nick.elam@sportsrulepod.com. In the meantime, check out the Elam ending at TBT, the basketball tournament, which begins July 18th on the Fox Sports family of networks. And we'll see you again in Season 2.